cabin roof came next, followed by the canopy, called the greenhouse by flyers. Workers could then finish mating the tubes, wires, and installing other nose furnishings. Next step in assembling a Liberator at Willow Run was building the tail part of the fuselage. These boat-like objects are aft bottom panels. The ribbing was held in place by fixtures, while workers applied the skin. After which the panels were turned over and furnished on this moving assembly line. In the meantime, the tail cone had been made, and its furnishings are here shown being completed on this line. Tail section side panels were joined together to form the top and sides of the aft fuselage, seen here as it is being lowered to meet its bottom panel. This worker is hooking up the oxygen system which supplies the life-sustaining gas to members of the crew when the bomber is flying at high altitudes. The complete assembly, all of the fuselage after the wing, was then lifted and carried to a 15-station moving assembly line where the remainder of its furnishings were installed. Throughout all these processes, company inspectors, one for every 13 workers, ensured that these bomber components were well made and ready for assembly. Meanwhile, the center wing section had been moved on to one of the 4 assembly lines, which in the end narrowed to 2. As the bomb racks, catwalk, and bomb bay sides go in, you can see the fuselage take shape where it connects with the center wing. At this point, the nose section and the aft section of the fuselage were fed into the final assembly lines by being lifted to an overhead conveyor which brought them to the proper spot for mating with the center wing. The first major section, the nose, was lowered to the assembly line where a cradle was used to slide it backward for connection with the wing. Next came the aft fuselage section. When the wing and this section were mated, it really began to look like a bomber. The gun turret in the bomber's nose was quickly installed. Then came engine installation. All 4 went on at one station, one after the other. With cowling and accessories all attached, one of the 1,200 horsepower Pratt & Whitney engines was carefully lowered into position and attached to its mounting in the wings. Each engine was fastened in place in 15 minutes, but of course, added time was needed to hook up their controls as the ship progressed down the line. Only 4 bolts hold the engine to the wing, and each of these is a mere 5/8 of an inch in diameter. As engines were installed, the great twin tail made in the Ford Rouge plant and assembled at Willow Run was swung down by a crane to its proper points on the fuselage. Made to fit with precision, the actual fastening of this unit required only a matter of minutes. After the tail was attached, all of the controls leading to the elevators and rudders had to be hooked up so the plane could be controlled in the air. Then another business unit of the bomber went into place, the top turret. Notice that the bomber then no longer rode down through the plant on conveyors. It rolled on its own giant wheel. At this point, 42, the great bird was ready to extend its wings. The bomber stopped on a floor conveyor and was slid sidewise to the middle of the bay. Note the little midget who will get inside the main wing to fasten the outer wing to the center section as it swings into position. The same action took place on the other side of the ship as well, and with both outer wings in place. The complete span is 110 feet from tip to tip. A few finishing touches remained as the bomber continued to move on a faster schedule since all of the large assemblies were in place. The insignia was painted on. Delicate instruments, radio equipment, wing flaps, soundproofing, and propellers quickly were added in this station-to-station progress. Here, the 4,200 square feet of bomber skin was cleaned. The woman worker polishes the bombardier's window. There is enough aluminum here to fabricate 55,000 coffee percolators, and it's quite a cleaning job. Back in 1941, it was believed impossible to build a bomber as big as the Liberator in an hour. In fact, in several hours. Even the conception of a plant such as this was viewed with considerable skepticism. But the people at Ford have vision as well as skill. They have always planned and worked on a broad scale, have always struck out on pioneering paths, and they're wise in the ways of mass production. Of course, this was something new in assembly, not just another relatively simple automobile with only 15,000 or so parts to be made and assembled. Each of these machines is made up of 1,225,000 parts, and each had to be perfect. And in these lines, you see the evidence of another Ford-made miracle. The Willow Run Bomber Plant has furnished one of the miracle production stories of this war. It produced 8,685 bombers in a steady stream, relentless, unceasing, on time, as methodical as a great river fed by its tributaries. These ships are the product of experience. Changes, some dictated by service conditions, have given to the Army Air Force's bombers that fly farther, faster, and higher, with the result that the final marbles look far different than their older cousins. After the ship was built, Ford's job was not yet done, because each ship, each of the thousands made at Willow Run, had to be thoroughly tested by both ground and flight crews. The .50 caliber machine guns were fired, and steel bullets buried themselves in the sand pit. Engines were revved up to takeoff speed. In some, dummy bombs were loaded to test the racks. But in all the planes, hours and hours were spent in tests and checks by specially trained ground crews before functional tests aloft. From Flight Operations Center, 4-man test crews took over. These crews consisted of pilot, co-pilot, radio man, and flight engineer. A touch on the hydraulic button, and the bomb bay door opens to give access to the ship. Engines start. And she taxis out to the runway for her first flight. The big ship gathers speed rapidly, racing down the runway for a full power takeoff. We're airborne, and the wheels are retracted into their wing well. In the air, the belly turret is lowered and tested. Each of the four propellers is fully feathered. When the pilot readjusts the blades, the rush of wind will again start the engine. Bomb bay doors are open and closed. The flight engineer checks performance of the engines and equipment, including the inner communication system, after which the bomb bay doors are open again and the dummy bombs are away. Test completed, our ship peels off. This ship is strong, with strength built in by skilled brains and hands. With all the experience that Ford has gained over the years of mass production. For the Army Air Forces, it has strength to fly and fight, and return to fly and fight again and again and again. That is its contribution to winning a peace. So out of the pain and fury of war has arisen the beginning of a means of rapid transport to the farthest places in the world, which in times of peace will help unite mankind that all may share in the abundance of the earth.